Know that, did you? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. It is Proclamation News and Events. Back with a brand new edition. April, the first Monday of April, the 5th. Has anyone got any new aspirations? New aspirations in life? You'll be prosperous when only prosperity matters. You want to inspire. You want to expire. You come to the right place. I'm the face of the UK. It's Proclamation Gathers, ladies and gents. If you're on Castbox, I'm also on YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you want to listen in safely, I'm also on Castbox. If you're driving, it's sometimes better to put me on Castbox. But if you want to see me in the visual, it's sometimes better to come on YouTube. You can also comment and say hello so I know you're here. And I'll give you a shout out over the radio. Also on Up Live TV, we've got loads of listeners, absolutely bundles of joy. We've got 16 on Castbox, 1 listener on YouTube, and 80 listeners on Up Live TV. Sometimes I get thousands on there. Sometimes I get about 1,000 in the room at the same time. But thank you. God bless. Happy Easter Monday. Hope you've had a great Easter weekend with your children. Stuff in your face with chocolate. I had a nice roast gammon yesterday, all by my ones. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, guys. If you like tabloid newspapers, broadsheet, I am your man. Absolutely. I'm a critical thinker, political analyst. This Proclamation News and Gatherance, produced, proudly sponsored by PSS Alarms. They're very ethical and pragmatic works carried out. All areas are covered, including central station monitoring is provided. All work according to insurance requirements. This is a friend of mine's company. He's carried out works in Harry Kane's stepmother's house in Hertfordshire, Potter's Bar. Hello, Nance. How you doing? How you doing, my friend? He carried out work in Essex, such as Casbar Restaurant in Clacton-on-Sea. Please call Thurrock Khan. Contact details are 07908 216 142. 07908 216 142. 07908 216 142. That's Thurrock Khan. Thank you ever so much for the gifts. I really appreciate you so much. Bless your soul. Installation and maintenance of intruder alarms, fire alarms, CCTV, all works guaranteed and certified to SSAIB. Thank you ever so much. 24-hour call-out services can provide CCTV for pubs, clubs, restaurants, or new business setup. Secure your business. Thank you ever so much for supporting my show. I appreciate you so much. Mention Professor Johnson for extra discount. Secure your home. Secure your business. Your safety and priorities within your business are paramount. So think safety, think first. Secure your equity. Not only secure your equity, secure your children's as well, your families. Everyone wants to leave their children some, a legacy to follow. So make sure you secure your household, secure your business, secure your family's household. Absolutely. Get that CCTV up. If you can afford it for your family and you're in that position to support your mum and dad for their safety, then so be it. Do it. Make them all safe. Looking at the next stage of lockdown, easing in England to go ahead on the 12th of April. Everyone's looking forward to what's coming ahead of us, what's opening up, what can we do next. Been locked down for the past, God knows how long. I've been locked down since 2018. I don't think one's going to get any easier at any stage. There we go. Anyway, and here we go. We're going to get into this. Will COVID mutate to affect children? Matthew from Norwich asked, there is a risk the COVID vaccine will mutate to affect children, especially as a vaccine rollout is predominantly for adults. That's a bit of a worry, isn't it? Sir Patrick Vallance says there's no evidence that the virus will mutate specifically to affect children. He says the virus will try to mutate to escape the vaccine, which means it'll probably have to be updated every year or so. He says there will be more trials for vaccines in children in the coming months. Professor Chris Whitty says one of the few good things in the pandemic is that children are relatively unaffected. He says adults are being vaccinated because their risk from COVID is much higher. When can residents of care homes meet family outside? Catherine asked when residents of care homes will be allowed out for a walk or a socially distant visit to a garden centre or pub. Boris Johnson says people do not want to see more flexibility for visiting care home residents, and the UK has to do everything we can to protect them. He says the government is now allowing two people to visit residents in care homes. He adds that the government is publishing more in the next few days on the potential further relaxation of the rules for residents of care homes. How many cases or variants of concern are in the UK? In England, Kent for some reason, country first detected. There's 173,042. Change since last update on the 24th of March. There's another 17,413 adding to it. In South Africa, there's 469 plus 57. Japan, more cases detected in Japan was 32. In England, Bristol, there was 43. That's mad, isn't it? The fourth test is that the assessment of the risk is not fundamentally changed by the new variant of concern. 24th of March to the 31st of March, there have been 17,413 new cases of the variant first discovered in Kent. The dominant variant in the UK is 57 cases of the variant first discovered in South Africa. 5 cases of the variant first in Manaus, Brazil, and 0 cases of the variant first discovered in Bristol. Professor Whitty says the proportion of cases of the South Africa variant have stayed steady over time and is no evidence they are increasing, although more cases are being picked up because of testing at the borders. Although variants of concerns will remain an issue, there is no reason to feel this fundamentally changes our position, he says. I mean, what could you do to change? Now we're going to go back to some normality. What can we do better this time round than we did last year? Hospital admissions and deaths continue to fall. I mean, everyone's got opinions. How can we go back? We've got to look at what the situation last year. We've got to evaluate the situation we did last year to make it better this year. So we're going to start opening up hospitality sector. Like I said, have a vaccine passport. Everyone that's been vaccinated should be allowed in, or a COVID test or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how you can make it better. I don't think they should open up hospitality. Full stop. The third test is that the infection rates do not risk a surge in hospitalisations, which would put unsustainable pressure on NHS. Professor Whitty says the number of people in hospital with COVID-19 has been steadily falling from the peak, and it is continuing to fall. On the 1st of April, there were 3,536 people in hospital with COVID-19. Professor Whitty says the number of people dying of the virus has also been steadily decreasing at a faster rate than during the first peak, which may be because of a combination of lockdown measures plus the effects of vaccines. He adds the average number of deaths is now about 47 a day, down from a peak of about 1,300 a day early in the year. Vaccines are highly effective, Chris Whitty said. The second test, vaccines are sufficiently effective in reducing hospitalisations and deaths in those vaccinated. Whitty says that looking at the data from people who have been vaccinated in all 4 nations of the UK, the government has consistently found a significant reduction symptomatic disease by about 60%. Hospitalisations, the reduction is around 80%. He says this shows vaccines are highly effective, but not completely effective and people should make sure they get their second dose. So when you get your first dose, when you get the call to go in for your vaccination, they give you the date of your first vaccination with a code, and then the date of your second one with another code. So you need to make sure you save it in your diary in your phone. And then when you go and have your first vaccination, they give you a card. I don't know if it has your date or second one on there, but there's a number you can call anyway to double check when your second dose is. So you won't forget. Anyone listening, you will not forget your second dose, because if you do, just ring the number. Vaccine being rolled out at a remarkable rate. Chris Whitty has said. England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, now takes us through the slides and the 4 tests for easing lockdown. The first test for easing lockdown in England is that the vaccine programme continues successfully. About 31.6 million people in the UK have now had their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and of these 5.4 million have also received a second dose. Professor Whitty says vaccines are being rolled out at a remarkable rate, and the figures are heading very much in the right direction. Prime Minister encourages those without symptoms to take tests. Boris Johnson encourages the public to take tests from the local test sites, even if they are not feeling unwell, and says these tests are available from local testing centres, pharmacies, and can be delivered to your door. He says the government is today publishing its early thinking on the return of normal events and the potential of COVID status certificates to confirm someone currently has immunity to the virus. We're setting out our roadmap and we're sticking with it, he states. Boris Johnson says there is nothing in the present data, such as a surge in cases or a new variant emerging, which suggests that the UK will have to deviate from its current roadmap out of the coronavirus restrictions. In the next stage, the lockdown easing in England to go ahead on the 12th of April. With the 4 tests for easing the lockdown in England met, the Prime Minister confirmed the next stage of the roadmap for relaxing restrictions to go ahead. This means from the 12th of April, non-essential shops and close contact services such as hairdressers and barbers can open. So a week today, this is what's happening. Restaurants and pubs can start serving customers outdoors. No requirement for a substantial meal to be served alongside alcohol, and no curfew. However, people will have to eat and drink while seated. Gyms and spas can reopen, and as can zoos, theme parks, libraries, and community centres. Members of the same household can take a holiday in England in self-contained accommodation. Weddings attended by 15 people can take place. There you go, happy days if you get married. The number of care home visitors are allowed will increase to 2 per resident. All children will be able to attend any indoor children's activity, including sport. Parent and child groups of 15 people, not counting children aged under 5 years old, can restart indoors. People should continue to work from home where they can and minimise domestic travel. International holidays are still legal. Outdoor gatherings must still be limited to 6 people or 2 households, and you must not socialise indoors with anyone you do not live with or have not formed a support bubble with. Step 2 of the roadmap out of lockdown can go ahead, the Prime Minister said. Prime Minister Boris Johnson begins by saying the public patience is paying off, and England can now move step 2 of the roadmap out of lockdown on 12th April. UK coronavirus briefing starting. Prime Minister Boris Johnson in a Downing Street briefing on coronavirus will bring you all the latest updates and analysis here. Analysts, the 4 tests appear to have been passed. The government set 4 tests to continue lifting of lockdown in England. Successful vaccination rollout. Those vacancies reducing hospitalisations and deaths. Infection rates not presenting a risk of unsustainable pressure on NHS. and new variants, not fundamentally changing the picture. On all four counts, there seems to be nothing that should slow the easing of restrictions at this stage in either England or the rest of the UK, for that matter. Hello, Mr. Dips. More than 31 million people have been given the first dose of the vaccine. The numbers in the hospital are more than 10 times lower than they were at the peak, while deaths have continued falling sharply. How you doing, my friend? Yeah, just doing my usual journalism on YouTube, buddy. Seeing what's lying ahead of us. On the 12th of April, everything's opening up. Meanwhile, the number of new cases being diagnosed each day has continued to fall despite the relaxation restrictions that took place in March. New cases of South African and Brazilian variants have been detected, as have the examples of the UK variant that has required the E484 mutation, which seems to allow it to evade some of the immune response. But these are still constitute just to a small fraction of overseas cases. There are no signs that are taking off. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you, mate. The picture is probably better than even the most optimistic experts expected. Boris Johnson to lead Downing Street briefing shortly. Boris Johnson is due to lead Downing Street briefing in about 5 minutes. He is joined by scientific advisor Sir Patrick Vallance and England's Chief Medical Officer Professor Chris Whitty. We're expecting announcements on the next stage of it easing lockdown, as well as a new traffic light system for foreign travel and possible use of COVID certificates to access services or events in England. Stick with us for all that latest updates and analysis. Yeah, 12th April. So we've got all the hospitality sector open up. You had to go to pubs, restaurants. I think it's outdoor orders only. But then there's no curfew on the lockdown. They're not going back to got to be locked down at a certain time, an hour early. They're going to keep it their normal, usual closing hours. But it's going to be a hell of a cold drinking outdoors. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it, buddy. Three men talking about two things. We've got barbers open up, hairdressers, all the old, pretty much everything open up, back up. Slowly does it. Three men talk about two things. There are the matinee trio. We've become all too familiar with the slog. The grief and the economic hurt of the past 12 months. Yet again, at 5 o'clock this evening, it is the turn onto England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, and Sir Patrick Vallance, the government's Chief Scientific Advisor. If you want to book a holiday in England, yeah, go ahead, because they're saying you can book a holiday in like a caravan park or something like that, maybe hotel is also, well, hotels are open anyway, but leaving your constituency to enter another is you're allowed to. Today's event is about, in broad terms, two things. Fulfilling the promise to provide a week's notice before any stage in unlocking process. 12th April, this time next week, is the scheduled date for opening of shops that remain shut in England, and return of pubs and restaurants, providing they serve us outside. Sketching out in some detail, but far from every detail. The practicalities around how we may lead our lives a little further down the line, when there has been further reopening of the economy and society. So we all hear plans for a traffic light system to classify countries as red, amber or green. Yes. Well, we'll hear what the stipulations around each other colour code will be. But no, we won't hear which countries are which colour. It is too soon to do that. Given that foreign travel, save a few expectations, remains banned until the 17th of May at the earliest. A summer resurgence is possible, Sage says. The opening of shops, pubs, gardens and hairdressers from next week is highly unlikely to put unsustainable pressure on NHS, according to the government's scientific advisor. But later, steps of Prime Minister Boris Johnson roam up out of England, including indoor mixing, are highly unlikely to lead to a resurgence in hospitalisations and deaths. A subgroup of the government scientific advisory group for emergencies, SAGE, has predicted. There's a lot of uncertainty, they say, and it is likely any resurgence will be smaller than the peak in January. There is a plausible, though pessimistic, scenario, however, in which opening up society could lead to another peak in the size of this winter's. I said about this anyway, months and months back. I mean, open up society again. We can look at another lockdown come October, November time. This assumes immunity doesn't wane significantly and there are no mutations to the virus which affect the vaccine. Firstly, we've got X amount of people that are not going to take the vaccine for whichever reason, bionidal arrogancy. You know, my body's been immune to not having COVID at the moment. I'm not going to have the vaccination. So they're going to make sure that we're in another lockdown come October, November. I've said this already. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is leading Downing Street briefing at 5 BST, where he'll be joined by the UK government's Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, and England Chief Medical Officer, Professor Whitty. While we wait, here's a quick summary of the main stories in the UK today. It is expected to confirm whether England will proceed with stage 2 of the roadmap out of lockdown on the 12th of April, including reopening non-essential shops and allowing pubs and restaurants to serve customers outdoors. It is also likely to unveil a traffic light system for foreign travel and give more detail on the possible use of COVID certificates to access services of events in the UK. Meanwhile, everyone in England is to be given access to 2 rapid coronavirus tests on Friday. In Scotland, hairdressers, home workshops and garden centres are reopening as part of the latest easing of the lockdown. All over 50s and at risk of adults or underlying health conditions have been offered the COVID-19 vaccine in Wales, according to the Welsh Government. Has anyone had any implications with their COVID vaccination? Anyone got a vaccination had any implications? Would like to, air their story, because I've had my vaccination and there is side effects. I had a bit of a funny head, heart palpitation. But one that is, it's very well mechanically made. The vaccination, COVID vaccination, absolute phenomenal. Absolute tragic happened for Conservative Party. Tory MP Dame Cheryl Gillan died after long illness. What a shame. A former Welsh Secretary, Dame Cheryl Gillan, has died at the age of 68 after a long illness. So Prime Minister Boris Johnson has paid a tribute to the Conservatives MP for Chesham and Amersham, saying she will be sorely missed. He described Dame Cheryl as a great servant and always full of wise advice and good humour. Dame Cheryl had served as the MP for Buckinghamshire seat since was first elected in 1992. Co-chairman of the Conservative Party, Amanda Milling, said the noted anti-HS2 campaigner had made a huge contribution to public life. Miss Milling said it was incredibly sad to hear that Dame Cheryl Gillan MP passed away at the weekend. Cheryl had been ill for some time, but battled her illness with great stoicism and grace. Cheryl was a dedicated parliamentarian for many decades, serving in the cabinet, and she made a huge contribution to public life and our party. Our thoughts and prayers are with Cheryl's family and friends. Former marketing chief executive Dame Cheryl was acting joint chair of the 1992 committee of the Tory backbench MPs from May to September 2019. That year, along with Charles Walker MP, she helped preside over the Conservatives' leadership contest to elect a successor, the former Prime Minister Theresa May, a contest Mr. Johnson has won. Born in Llandaff in Cardiff, Dame Cheryl was Welsh Secretary between 2010 and 2012. Welsh Conservative Senate leader Andrew R.T. Davis said Dame Cheryl was a model of the public service and was respected across the political spectrum. She was incredibly proud of her Welsh roots and served with a distinction as a Secretary of State, he said. Cheryl was a good friend to the Welsh Conservatives and will be sorely missed. Tracy Crouch says she's heartbroken to hear desperately sad news that my colleague Cheryl Gillan has passed away. She had been a great source of strength as we went through chemo together. When she told me she was dying, I told her all the nice things I would say, so she knew. Conservative MP from Chatham and Alresford, Tracy Crouch, who revealed her own breast cancer diagnosis in June, said in a series of messages on social media that she was heartbroken to hear desperately sad news and felt blessed to have known Dame Cheryl. Thank you everyone for coming through to support me. Please give me a follow. She had been a great source of strength as we went through chemo together, she wrote. When she told me she was dying, I told her all the nice things I would say, so she knew she was an incredibly inspirational woman in politics who fought for the things she believed. She was always kind and helpful to us newbies. She had oldies of wisdom for her years as an MP, which she shared willingly. I shall miss her greatly. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said he was very sad to hear that Dame Cheryl Gillan has passed away. He added on Twitter that he had worked with Dame Cheryl on a number of issues and that she was respected across the House and a great champion for her constituents. My thoughts are with her family and friends at this sad time. Speaker of the House and Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoare, and said Dame Cheryl's death would leave a big hole in all our lives. He said she was one of the most popular, friendly and kindly people in the Commons. And adios attendee of debates, Dame Cheryl never passed up an opportunity to speak against the proposed high-speed rail link HS2, he added. BBC political correspondent Chris Mason added that in time there would be a by-election in the seat she represented for nearly 3 decades. Let's give it up for Dame Cheryl Gillan. Let's give it up for Conservatives. Absolute phenomenal. Yes, we've got that coming up next, my friend. Mean Green Skull. Yes, we've got that coming up right near the end of the show. No business like show business. So make sure you stay tuned and give it a share, please. Subscribe, share, send the love. Flux with a flow and flux with a show. And it's proclamation, news and gatherings. And it is the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson speaking. Thank you. COVID tests to be offered twice weekly to all in England. Everyone in England's been given access to 2 rapid coronavirus tests a week from Friday under the extension of the government's testing programme. The lateral flow kits, which can provide results in about 30 minutes, will be available for free testing sites, pharmacies and through the post. Health Secretary said it would be help squash any outbreaks as lockdown eases, but critics of the government say it risks becoming a scandalous waste of money. It comes as Boris Johnson is due to meet the Cabinet to sign off the next stage of lockdown easing in England, which will see non-essential shops reopen and pubs and restaurants start serving outdoors from 12th of April. Later, the Prime Minister will hold Downing Street briefing where he is expected to confirm countries will be graded under a traffic light system when international leisure travel resumes. He's also set to outline plans for coronavirus passports, recording whether people have been vaccinated, recently tested negative or had natural immunity as a means of enabling mass audience events to take place in the future. However, dozens of MPs oppose the use of COVID passports, and Mr Johnson faced the prospect of a rebellion among a number of senior Conservatives if he proceeds with them. Lateral flow tests are already offered to school children and their families, plus those who have to leave home from work. Prime Minister held the plan to offer everyone testing from 9th April, saying, as we continue to make good progress on our vaccine programme and with our roadmap courteously easing restrictions underway, regular rapid testing is more important to make sure those efforts are not wasted. Health Minister Edward Arger told BBC Breakfast he expected the lateral flow test to be used by those returning to work in the coming weeks as the economy starts opening up again. He said fewer than 1 in every 1,000 lateral flow tests gave a false positive result and refused to set an arbitrary date for when testing would end. Mr. Arger said the testing would be paid for as part of NHS Test and Trace funding of 37 billion over 2 years. 30% of that expected to be used for testing. So you go back to work for a couple of months. Not many people want to go back to work because the summer's opening up. So how's that going to work? Publication dates differ by nation. The most recent data for all nations to the 1st of April figures were weekly until the 10th of January. Rapid tests are aimed at those without COVID symptoms and can be taken at home. The government introduced lateral flow tests for secondary school children. Secondary school. That is my beautiful mother just ringing me. I have to call her back shortly. The government introduced lateral flow testing for secondary school children and staff early this year under plans to reopen classes in England by March. In February, the scheme was extended to the families of school and college age children in England. Kits were also offered to those who cannot work from home in the pandemic, so they can be tested twice a week. From 9th April, kits will be available through community testing sites operated by local authorities, collection from a nearby PCR test site during the specific time windows, existing workplace testing programs, and online home ordering services, with kits then delivered throughout the post. Participate in local pharmacies where a box of 7 tests can be collected to be used twice a week at home. Anyone who tests positive using a lateral flow test will be expected to self-isolate along with their household. They can then order a second PCR COVID test, typically used for symptomatic cases, which will be sent off to the laboratory for analysis. If the confirmatory tests come back negative, their quarantine period is considered over immediately and they can resume normal life. I mean, I'm not going to finish this. I am going to finish, but I'm going to have a break. You know, the key workers. When we give the clap for the key workers, the NHS. I mean, you got the police. Me and them had reasons, but not everyone should be paying the police. Police are putting their life on the edge to save others. Our safety is paramount, and they put their neck on it. Just like any NHS servant. They put their neck on the line to protect others. Their job is and supermarket workers as well. Supermarket workers are another one. Without supermarkets, we wouldn't be alive, and they're staying open. They're still working hard, and they're still risking their own life going to work. I mean, police are, they have to deal with all kinds of monstrosity, all the different walks of life. Dangerous driving, you've got drug dealers, people carrying weapons. It's like World War II scenario for them at times, I should imagine. I don't know, I've never done a job, but you can quite imagine the human excrement they have to put up with, I've had my differences in the time, but I've also suffered with long-going health issues, which is not quite frankly their fault. I just blame everyone. I've had a head injury by several people, so I tend to blame the world. And I lash out on people, and I'm pretty sure they understand where I'm pretty sure they understand my discretion that we have amongst each other. But they're phenomenal at their job. I always will say they are phenomenal at their job. They do make a few errors, don't we all? Everyone's there everyone makes human error. There you go. Big human error when it comes to my children, and that's another stress as well. So every time I have a court hearing for my children, such as any alienated mother, father, in that scenario, family court, you come out at the end with sour grapes. You're gonna be sour grapes in your fort. So simple as that. Horses for courses, they say. Anyway, school testing program combined with the wider use of workplace testing has led to a jump in the number of lateral flow tests carried out in England. There were about 250,000 rapid tests a day taken in mid-February, climbing to more than a million a day by the end of March. Dr. Susan Hopkins, COVID-19 Strategic Response Director at Public Health England, said rapid testing might find cases that would not otherwise be discovered, helping to break chains of transmission and suppress the spread of variants or mutations of coronavirus. The Department of Health said parents may wish to consider testing children under the age of 11, but the current Public Health England advice was that there was a limited public health benefit from testing primary school age children with lateral flow devices. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said around 1 in 3 people who have COVID-19 show no symptoms, and as we open society and resume parts of life we have missed. Regular, rapid testing is going to be fundamental in helping us quickly spot positive cases and squash any outbreaks. Shadow Health Secretary Jonathan Ashworth said any expansion of the testing scheme must be backed by financial support so people could self-isolate, adding lack of adequate sick pay and support remains a dangerous hole in the defence against this horrific virus. False positive concern. The latest data shows that of the 42 million lateral flow tests taken in schools and colleges in a week, from the 18th of March to the 24th of March, 4,502 returned a positive result. Critics of the programme say that when rates are at low levels, it makes it hard to distinguish between actual infections and so-called false positives, and error where the test registers and positive result incorrectly. Mass testing is a scandalous waste of money, said Alison Pollock, professor of public health at Newcastle University. When the prevalence rate of coronavirus falls as low as it is at the moment, then an increasing proportion of cases are likely to be false positives, meaning that cases and contacts will self-isolate unnecessarily. Professor Pollock said it is likely that mass testing is going to be more harm than good, and there had been no evaluation of mass testing programs by government. The government requires secondary school children to take a second PCR or lab test if the first rapid lateral flow test comes back positive in school. Parents and scientists have warned some pupils were self-isolating unnecessarily after just returned to the classroom. The government said that every 1,000 lateral flow tests carried out, there was less than one false positive, and the rapid tests were particularly useful at detecting high levels of the virus. We're going to come into a short break, guys. It's always phenomenal you guys come through supporting, sharing the show, subscribing to Proclamation News and Gatherings. We are absolute populism on Castbox, on it all the time, predominantly every day or every time I get a moment. Essex weather. We've had snow today. Let me chance this. Ma'am? Hello? Ma'am? I'll bring you back in a minute, Mark, on here. I'll bring you back and see. That's my mama. Sorry, guys. My lovely little mama. I tried to bring her earlier, but I don't think she realised I'm on the radio. Let's a little while. I'll bring her back shortly. Essex weather. Snow falls in Chelmsford just days after county back in 22 Celsius sunshine. We had a bit of snow much ever. Oh my goodness. Hi, Mum. Hi, Mum. Do you mind if I ring you back in about 45 minutes? I'm just on the radio.
Yeah, it's fine.
I might ring you back. It's not, if you didn't need me for anything, you just call me back.
Just calling you back.
Okay, I'll ring you back in about 45, okay?
Yeah, alright then,
I'm on
Dad.
speak a bit. Bye.
Bye.
Sorry about it, guys. Here we go again. Over the weekend, many parts of the county had warm weather, much to the delight of those wanting to spend Easter with up to 6 loved ones, or with another household. However, the warm weather didn't last long, with parts of the county seeing snow fall earlier today. The cold front from the North Sea led to parts of the county, including Southend, Leigh-on-Sea, Braintree and Southend Walden, seeing snow and blistering cold temperatures. One Chelmsford resident captured the snowfall in a back garden on camera and shared it on Twitter. The 12-second video had been viewed more than 1,000 times since it was posted online shortly after 10 a.m. Snow was short-lived, and snow now signs of settling, with snowflakes only falling for a few minutes. Across parts of Essex this afternoon, temperatures could drop to lows of -3 Celsius, but by Friday, April the 9th, temperatures are expected to warm up, reaching double figures once again. That is ludicrous, isn't it? But by Friday the 9th, temperatures are expected to warm up, reaching double figures once again. We're going to go for one more segment. We're going to short amid break, guys. Police have been called to illegal Thurrock car meet. I mean, provocation, that's what I was just saying. Police are attending all kinds of provocations across the globe. Police are called to illegal Thurrock car meet that attracted around 450 cars in a blatant breach of COVID-19 regulations. Officers cruisers' rights. I mean, what an idiot. Why doesn't someone like Jimmy Corbyn get arrested? He's an MP of great excellence, supposedly. Very etiquette with sense and style, but he has none. He has zero. 100 cars attending an illegal car meet in Essex over Easter bank holiday weekend. Yesterday evening, Sunday, April the 4th, a large group of coronavirus rule breakers met in the car park of Sainsbury Chelmsford, then proceeded to move on to the motorway in Thurrock. Essex police officers were made aware of the large car meet and quickly attended the scene to disperse the drivers. The officers warned the car cruisers to go home or face having their vehicles seized. When officers arrived, they found up to 450 cars illegal car meet, which is against current government coronavirus regulations. Last night, Chief Inspector Richard Melton, District Commander of the Thurrock, said, "If you come back to Thurrock this evening and take part in a car cruising event, you could have your car seized." Oh, imagine that. Imagine all them car dealers with them tow trucks. They've been having a field day picking up all them nice sporty cars, taking them to their scrapyard. That would have been funny, wouldn't it? That would have been absolutely funny. You got nice, I don't know what cars would they use? Subarus and all them kind of sports rapid devices turning up, and you got the truck with the high abs lifting them onto the back of the truck to be squashed or seized. It would have been absolutely funny. Stupidity meeting a car then, absolutely. Our partners at Thurrock Council have put additional measures in place, such as a Public Space Protection Order, PSPO, which give us increased powers to deal and disperse these events. And we have additional resources available to us this weekend, meaning if you come here, we have the manpower to deal with you. If you go somewhere else in the county, we'll be there too. This meet would be a clear and blatant breach of the government's COVID-19 regulations. Chief Inspector Melton added, "These events can pose at risk to those attending and to the public. We know that when the events take place, there are some of those involved who drive antisocially and sometimes drive dangerously. And additionally, this meet would be clear and blatant breach of government's COVID-19 regulations. So if you attend, you can face a fine. Our message is clear: COVID-19 regulations, and we have resources available to deal with you, such as a police cell and your car to be seized. Be a idiot and make a provocation for the government or the police. There you go. Imagine that. That'd be absolutely funny, wouldn't it? Oh, that'd be hilarious. So funny. We're gonna have a short break, guys. I'm gonna make a cup of tea and come straight back. And we got another shout out for another. Um, yeah, DMX is in hospital, so we're going to have a little, give our prayers, give our thoughts for DMX. DMX, the rapper. I know it's gone a bit off topic, but I want to get always a bit of no business like show business. See what's going on there as well. Give a bit more of a public interest. You can have more people will actually coming in for some interest. Good show, guys. Just enjoy.
As policies evolve, and whether it's the nature of the future of protesting and policing and the crime bill, whether it's indeed COVID passes, a lot of policies unraveling or unfolding, I should say, or progressing as we speak, that the Labour leader could discuss or could debate or hold government to account on. And in fact, I'd go so far as to say that this could well be the time where he puts aside what he thinks of certain proposals being suggested, and instead focuses on thinking about it in a sense of, I need to perform as Her Majesty's opposition. Whether or not I think the PM is doing a good job or not is different to whether he deserves my scrutiny. Again, going back to the analogy of companies, it's a company's job to make profit. It's a leader of the opposition's job to oppose. And the voters, at least, Labour voters, feel that he's not really getting in there on the opposition side as well as he could be a year in. Though, as I say again, it's not all that bad. It is quite normal for him to be at this minus 9%, as Cameron was as well. It's quite normal at this stage, only a year in, because elections, the general election, I should say, is still a while away. And on top of that, of course, Boris Johnson has had some successes. And also, considering we're in this time of national crisis with the pandemic, we also know that the public generally would not want to play politics with health. As Neil Kinnock himself said in the very well-established now 1985 Labour conference speech, where he said you can't play politics with people's lives. So perhaps that's the approach that Mr. Starmer's taken, thinking, you know what, I'm going to let the pandemic run its course and then start focusing on some of the opposition I need to focus on to be able to shine as leader of Her Majesty's opposition. I'm going to throw something else out here at you as well now. If you're not happy as a, say, Labour-leaning or Labour-voting member of the electorate, if you're not happy with Keir Starmer's performance, who would you rather see in position doing that job? And who do you think is performing well enough and strong enough that would indicate that they'd be a good leader of the opposition and would be able to be a personality that could match the undeniable personality and presence that is Boris Johnson? One thing that is difficult to dispute is that the man has a presence, Mr. Johnson. And then on top of that, he has this bounce back ability due to things like the success of the vaccine program. And that's aiding him significantly. On top of that, he's a bit of a Teflon Don in the sense that very few things stick when thrown at Mr. Johnson. So combine those three things, it may be a bit of an unfair expectation to hope that Keir Starmer can challenge the current Prime Minister. And if that is something that you think is the case, who would you rather see in his place? Let's consider, for example, I think Lisa Nandy's doing quite a good job at Shadow Foreign. David Lammy's profile of Shadow Justice is ever increasing, not least because he has a show on this station. But otherwise, even outside of this, the man has his own presence. And it's difficult to forget the presence of those two, at least in my mind, Lisa Nandy, David Lammy. But who would you think would be able to replace Keir Starmer if you're not happy after the main elections and think, it needs a bit of a change, it's getting a bit stale and boring and all the same? Now, of course, there are those in Keir Starmer's camp who would argue this is all part of a strategy. It's all part of a plan to maintain a steady ship, not rock the boat too much, wait for the pandemic to subside, wait for other issues to become the main news topics of the day, wait for COVID to no longer be dominating.
For the report of the global task force. So I think there hasn't been much news in terms of the reopening, but we're still hopeful that we will have a clear timeline for the next milestone.
I think there are indications in the written information the government's put out that perhaps we'll get more from the global task force team this week. So you may only have to wait a few days. To pick up on the point that our listener Philip made, does it seem odd to you that British people are still banned from going abroad except under exceptional circumstances, and yet figures today suggest thousands of people are coming to the UK for a holiday every day?
I mean, I think that the government has been very clear that travel is not allowed in the current circumstances, and from our point of view, actually, there should be some exceptions. For example, business travel. I mean, the UK should be making the most of the incredible vaccination rollout that they've had. I mean, I think only today they were reporting more than 30 million people have been at least had one dose, and most of the other population, or a very good percentage of it, has had two doses. So I think there should be some sort of reopening, but clearly they're being very cautious in terms of the variance in the situation of other destinations. I think people traveling into the UK are still having to face quarantines and a number of different PCR tests. So what we're hoping to see for the next announcement is at least some sort of well, for sure, clarity in terms of what that reopening will be, but also hopefully some sort of rapid testing system implemented. They were just referring today to lateral flow tests and how people in England will be able to have access to a couple of tests per week, even if needed. And I think that's the type of reassurance of testing for travel that we will hope to see.
In terms of red, amber, and green, we haven't been told yet, and perhaps it would be surprising if we were, given the circumstances, which countries will be in which band. But isn't the reality that even when we know which countries, which colour, as the weeks and months of summer and into autumn roll on, we also know from experience, don't we, that things can change, numbers can change very rapidly. It's possible, isn't it, that people might fly to country A and begin 2 weeks holiday thinking they're in a green zone, and by the time they come back, they're flying out of a red zone.
Exactly, and unfortunately, we experienced this last summer. I mean, countries going in and out of these lists, and all those changes were incredibly disruptive, not only for travelers, but also for suppliers. So whilst the government has been, I mean, there's been an indication that there will be a sort of traffic light system this summer as well. We're hoping that there will be more of a timeline or at least notice for travelers to be able to make their bookings and also enjoy their holidays, and not this disruption of going countries in and out the list within a week and with at least like 24, 48 hours notice, which is what happened last summer. So I think if they can at least provide some sort of notice and clarity, and again, as I was saying, if testing can be part of the solution in order to avoid quarantines, and also for people to be able to enjoy their summer, I think that's going to be able to provide the sector the much needed boost that it needs.
Thanks so much for talking to us. Virginia Messina, Managing Director of the World Travel and Tourism Council. So vaccine certification for the UK still very much on the table. The only thing that was ruled out was for visiting essential shops and using public transport. Still no clear information as to what travel will be allowed and in what circumstances. And as we've heard, although there's been a big announcement on testing, lateral flow tests are made available to people in England, what happens after people test positive? What level of support is there for them? Lots to talk about. I want to hear what you think. 0345 60 60 973. Now it's 6:17. This is LBC.
This is LBC.
New Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. Best Coca-Cola ever. Try it now and decide.
For the latest travel news, go to lbc.co.uk.
Gary bought a trampoline online with Visa, so he has protection if his card is used fraudulently. Now Gary's feeling pretty confident. Confident enough to try a slam dunk from his trampoline. Oh, Gary. Visa's zero liability helps protect you from fraud. It just can't protect you from yourself. Search Visa How You Pay Matters to find out more. Commercial and anonymous prepaid cards excluded. Responsible card use required. Contact your bank for T&Cs.
Things that can be golden. Coins, medals, the eggs of legendary geese. And now, you've got golden goodie bags. Yep, automatically repeat a £15 golden goodie bag and you'll get an extra 10 gigabytes of data every time. That's more data for the same price. Go golden. Repeat your goodie bag and get more data. Search Golden Goodie Bags today. Gift gap. Winner U-Switch Mobile Network of the Year 2021. Terms apply. Safe payment card required.
At Honda, we listen to drivers for inspiration, even when they say things we can't play on the radio. Like when a pulls out without indicating, or when a crosses the road without checking first, or when a doesn't understand how a roundabout works. That's why we developed a collision sensor system, which detects risks and automatically brakes. And to keep all family road trips family-friendly, it's included as standard with the new Honda CR-V Hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
Okay, people, let's get moving. You're doing great. GREAT. Or leave the motivation to vitality. With our health insurance, you could get the Apple Watch Series 6 to help keep yourself on track. From just £37 upfront with nothing more to pay if you stay active. Sharing the benefits of healthy living. Just search Vitality. Upfront payment varies. Selected models only. 18 plus. 36-month credit agreement. Variable direct debit. Qualifying Vitality plans. Minimum premiums. Terms and exclusions apply.
Hey, Harry. Hello, mate.
Wait.
I've just moved house, and all my ripples are stuck up in the loft. But listen, if it's the bright lights of Vegas you're after, your best bet is to head over to the Betfictor Casino and have a spin on the slots. Now listen, a little tip. Oh, hold up, I've got to run. The football's about to start.
Harry? Listen to Harry and make your best bet with BetVictor. 18 plus, be gamble aware. Please gamble responsibly.
Hello, this is your bank.
Impersonator. Luckily for me, not everyone can see through my deceit, and I'd like to keep it that way. That's why I don't want you to sign up to it. Which Scam Alerts? Our free service that keeps you up to date with the latest scams. No wonder scammers don't want you to sign up. Visit which.co.uk/scam alerts.
Get ready to step into a magical kingdom where fairy lights become stars and blankets become unicorn houses. Where is this amazing place? Your daughter's bedroom. Thanks to very.co.uk, you'll have everything from fairy lights to princess costumes. Because our house is our world, this very moment.
For delicious handcrafted biltong, visit ragingbrewbiltong.co.uk and we'll give you 15% off in your first order.
This is LBC with Abbey. Call 0345 6060 973.
Your response to what we heard and didn't hear from Boris Johnson in the last hour. Barbara is in Sutton. Thanks for your patience, Barbara. What did you think?
I was just wondering how the rollout is going to happen throughout the entire population of England, the entire adult population, because it's supposed to have been happening in schools, and in my daughter's school, there haven't been enough vaccine tests to test everybody, and so the teachers have had to forego their tests so that more of the children can be tested. But if they can't manage that, how is it going to happen throughout the country?
How much do you worry about your daughter?
I worry about it quite a lot, and I have done since the beginning. Working from home is particularly demanding, but she's back in school now, and she's being subjected to the possibility of getting COVID.
And how much does she worry about her position? I know you're her mum, so you'll worry anyway, but for her, what's it like?
She's quite worried. I mean, at the moment, she's got a terrible cough and a chest problem, and that actually often happens to teachers during the holidays. They carry on until holidays, then they to me today that she might have to get herself a test just to make sure that my husband has had COVID twice in the last few months. So it does happen pretty soon after, it can happen pretty soon after having had COVID already. So we don't take it all for granted at all.
Well, I'm thinking of your husband. How's he getting on, having been hit twice, for heaven's sake?
He's all right. We were isolating and he went into hospital. He got it in hospital. He then came home after he was COVID free, had to go back into hospital again and got it again in hospital and waited there until he was COVID free.
We're back.
So okay.
Short break. We're back.
Proclamation
news gathered
seemed
back.
to be less severe than the initial one. So that's one good thing. And he's fine now.
Well, fingers crossed for you, Barbara, making a very good point. If teachers aren't getting all the tests they're supposed to, how will everyone else get theirs? 0345 606 0973. Terry is in Dover. Terry, tell me about you.
Oh yeah,
Hi.
yeah. My point. Basically, I'm a truck driver, European. I will be shipping out tomorrow morning. I will be going through France, through Belgium, into Germany, up to Holland, and then back again the same way. There are no tests for truck drivers coming in and out of this country. That's my point is, the truck driver, foreign truck drivers, it's right in France, it's right in Belgium, Poland, Bulgaria. No tests. They just come into Dover. No problems asked. Average 900 trucks a day come through Dover. Now, at some point, them truck drivers will use a toilet facility, a service station, a cafe, a shop, anywhere like that. No tests. They just go out of the country, but there's no control.
What should the regime be then, Terry, for you going from here to the continent and from then coming here?
The new idea they've got now, tomorrow I don't need a test. Providing I'm not in Europe for more than 48 hours, I don't need a test going out or a test coming in.
Ladies and gents, they're doing that's the old passport check on the test, test on the COVID, test and trace, making sure none of the COVID coming in and out of the country. But, we've got protesters out there, 1,000 protesters. Jeremy Corbyn supporting protesters to go out there, have a safe protest. They should be allowed to protest, up to 1,000 people, but yeah, we're allowed to meet 6 in a garden, 6 outdoors. Jeremy Corbyn says 1,000. As long as it's a safe protest, 1,000. Supporting 1,000 protesters. What an absolute chronicle human excrement of a bloke he is. Really is. Anyway, let's go to no business like show business. Moving on. Thank you all for supporting Proclamation News and Gatherings with the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson at PNG. Absolutely. 2 sugars, please, Bob. Shaken, not stirred. Oh. So bear with me 2 seconds. We had a bit of a fall over. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna get the phone on charge. It's been a bit of a lead pops out. I need a phone stand. I'm gonna buy one next month. Buy one next month. Next month comes, I don't buy one. I never buy one. So here we go. Here we go, ladies and gents. Let's get with it. No business like show business. My YouTube channel should be monetization by now. So should my car spot. More people should go. This guy has been going for so long, but we're not giving him the support he deserves. Rapper DMX in hospital after a heart attack. US rapper and actor DMX is in a serious condition in hospital following a heart attack, says his lawyer, Murray Richmond. Mr. Richmond told the US media he didn't know whether the heart attack was brought on by a drug overdose, as reported by TMZ. DMX has publicly battled substance abuse for years and spent several periods in rehab. He is seen as a hip-hop icon and has collaborated with artists including Jay-Z, Ja Rule, Eve, and LL Cool J, as well as appearing in films. The 50-year-old, whose real name is Earl Simmons, was taken to hospital in White Plains, New York, late on Friday evening. Mr. Richmond said, where he is surrounded by his family. He was on life support. The lawyer said he's been taken off the life support. He is in breathing on his own, but there's a little brain activity. The father of 15 was served jail. The father of 15 has served jail sentences in the past of charges including animal cruelty, reckless driving, drug possession, and weapons possession. In 2018, he made headlines by playing one of his own songs to a judge in court. When he was facing charges of tax fraud, after listening to the song, the judge said DMX was a good man and gave him 1 year in prison. In 2016, he stopped breathing and had to be resuscitated in that hotel car park in New York State. DMX has a career spanning more than 20 years, and as well as music. He has appeared in films including Cradle 2 and Grave and Romeo Must Die, both starring Jet Li. Earl was a sweet guy, Mr. Richmond said. Earl was a person who could tell such a story. He was a person with such depth. It's a heartbreaker. DMX is in hospital following a heart attack. So you got to remember, ladies and gents, all them young days of legacy. You know, you try to jump straight into deep end to get a name for yourself, to do something. You've got aspirations in life. You want to grab them with both hands. If it's football, hockey, basketball, singing, artwork, in the end, it all goes to disparity. Hatfield events. Anyone in Hatfield, Hertfordshire? Hatfield events to trial COVID vaccine passport schemes. Hatfield House is set to host 10-kilometre runs as part of the government's pilot scheme for COVID vaccine passports. Hatfield House. Everyone thinks of Buckinghamshire Palace. When it comes to the monarch of England, Buckinghamshire Palace, no one knows about Hatfield House. This is why I keep going about Welling and Hatfield Garden, you know, all the Hertfordshire news. Hatfield House is where Elizabeth I, we've got Elizabeth II in the modern world, but the hysteric world of before time that no one remembers and no one even knows about. When it comes to qualitative evidence, we're looking back for books of history and, you know, decades and generations of history. Hatfield House, where Elizabeth I, the monarch of England. Theresa May visited Hatfield House in 2017, I believe. Events will be held at government's COVID-19 vaccine passport. Hatfield Park has been picked one of the initial 9 pilot events for the controversial COVID status certification scheme. The Hertfordshire statedly home will host 3 10-kilometre mass participation runs over the weekend of Saturday, April the 24th to Sunday, April the 25th. Culture and I'll be cheering on the runners. The Hertfordshire MP tweeted, "We have revealed the initial pilot event which will help pave the way for larger audiences at sport, theatre and gigs this summer. The government's science-led events research programme will work for organisers to undertake studies to get fans and audiences back safely. We have revealed the initial pilot events will help pave the way for larger audiences at sport, theatres and gigs this summer. The government's science-led events research programme will work with organisers to undertake studies to get fans and audiences back safely. The fun run at Hatfield House on April the 24th and 25th will take place with 3,000 runners and up to 3,000 spectators allowed at each. Our sport events include the test scheme, including the Carabao Cup final, the second FA Cup final, the FA Cup final at Wembley." Writing in today's Mail on Sunday, Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said, "We will examine and risk closely, plan to keep people safe, mitigate the dangers, and in doing so we will be able to have spectators returning in full to events once more. Each successful pilot is a huge step forward towards a life we all miss sorely every day. The Prime Minister, who set out more details on Monday, said the government was doing everything we can to enable them to return to massive gatherings and indoor events as lockdown restrictions ease in London. Boris Johnson said, "We have made huge strides over the past few months with our vaccine programme, and everyone in our country has made huge sacrifices to get us to this stage in recovery from COVID-19. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, during a media briefing of coronavirus on Downing Street, travel and other things they love as safely as possible. And these reviews will play an important role in allowing this to happen. As part of the coronavirus vaccination passport pilot, the FA Cup semi-final between Leicester and Southampton at the National Stadium on April the 18th will see football fans return for the first time since December, with 4,000 spectators able to attend. Wembley Stadium in London will stage a number of test events for the government's vaccination passport pilot scheme. Manchester City, Tottenham and Carabao Cup final 7 days later with 8,000 fans watching a month-long scheme will conclude the FA Cup final on May the 15th, when 21,000 fans will be allowed to attend. The World Snooker Championship at the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield, running from April the 17th to May the 3rd, is the first sporting event to be included in the trial and will have 1,000 spectators per day. There will also be a mass participation run at Hatfield House on the 24th, 25th with 3,000 runners and further 3,000 spectators. Show. Lunar will take into account three factors: whether an individual has received the vaccine, has recently tested negative for the virus, or has immunity, having tested positive in previous 6 months. The NHS is said to be working on ways providing people that mean to demonstrate the COVID status through digital and non-digital routes via a phone app or paperwork signed by a GP. 2 more segments to get through. This is absolutely a phenomenal show. Phenomenal audience. I'm so overwhelmed that everyone come through supporting our show. I don't just mean it. I really, honestly mean it from the bottom of my heart. How everyone who actually can come through. I could be here just sitting talking to nobody, but you've got to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy what you're talking about. You've got to enjoy the participation of the listeners, the observers, people staying preserved, find out what's going on in the news. Thank you ever so much. Dubai police arrest go over nude balcony shoot. I mean, Dubai is a very, very strict country. A group have been arrested in Dubai and charged with public debauchery after an outdoor nude photo shoot. Video footage posted on Saturday shows a group of naked women having their photo taken on a balcony. 11 Ukrainian women are among those detained. The Ukrainian consulate told the BBC a Russian was also detained, according to the Russian media. Public debauchery carries a sentence of up to 6 months in prison and a 5,000 dirham fine of £981. Many of the UAE's laws are based on Sharia law, and people have been jailed in the past for public displays of affection on homosexual relationships. Roughly a dozen women were pictured on the balcony in Marina district of Dubai. Ukrainian consulate says it will visit the women on Tuesday. Early reports in Russian media that 8 Russian women are arrested have since been denied, but RIA news agency have quoted officials as saying that a Russian who organised the shoot has also been arrested. He faces up to 18 months in prison, the agency says. Police in Dubai warn that anyone publishing pornographic material or any material that may prejudice public morals faces imprisonment and a fine. In Dubai, you're not allowed to drink. Such unacceptable behaviours do not reflect the values of and ethics of the Emirati society, a police statement said. Any person who lives in or visits the UAE is subject to its laws. There are no exceptions for tourists. There have been few high-profile cases of tourists getting arrested while on holiday in Dubai. In 2017, a British woman was sentenced to 1 year in prison for having consensual sex with a man she wasn't married to. The relationship came to light when the woman reported him to the authorities for sending her threatening messages. Dubai is a very, very, very strict country. I mean, that is one place I'd like to go because you're not allowed to drink. You've got to be very respectful. Race report was controversial part of the plan. Did the government set out to cause controversy with that investigation into racial disparity in the UK, or was the report's release on Wednesday mishandled? We spoke to former and current Conservative insider on condition of anonymity to find out how the report had come together and the way in which it is communicated to the media. It's fair to say that the report by the Commission on Race Ethnicity Disparities prompted by last year's Black Lives Matter protest was not universally welcomed. Among the critics we were the Race Equality think tank, the Runnymede Trust, the Tuck, the NHS Employees Group, and range of politicians and some of those involved in last year's protests. Oh, and by implication, Sam Kasumi too. Those close to Mr. Kasumi say he resigned, and Boris Johnson, advisor for civil society and communities, with a remit to reach out to ethnic minority communications in anticipation of the report hitting the media. He is already known to be unhappy with the direction that the government was going in on the race. He had tried to resign in February but persuaded to stay on so that he could help Vaccines Minister Nadine Sawahi in campaign to encourage more people from ethnic minority backgrounds to get a COVID jab. In his original resignation letter, that was later resigned. He talked of his fears for what may become of the Conservative Party in the future by choosing to pursue a politics steeped in division. And sources inside Downing Street say that in time between the letter being retracted and his actual resignation, an awkward silence had descended, with little discussion on engagement on the issue that he raised. So did the government get its message wrong? It published their report this week, or was the backlash in some quarters the result of a deliberate strategy? Uncomfortable debate. The Commission's report runs to 258 pages, but some conclusions have been briefed to the media in advance of its publication on Wednesday. These include a call to ditch a commonly used acronym BAME, Black and Minority Ethnic, and data improving educational attainment of the people for most ethnic minority groups. But perhaps the most controversial finding, and the one that grabbed the most headlines, was the UK was the institutionally racist. One source we spoke to praised the handling of the support for the comms perspective. He said, no, Number 10 knew that a row was going to be inevitable, so briefing key elements of a contentious report in advance. It had allowed that a row to take place on the government terms. The government knows how uncomfortable it is for Labour to have those debates, said the source. Some people feel their history and culture is being trashed by their left. Is Britain a racist country? There were many non-contentious recommendations in the report that a lot of nuisance, he added, but initial communication strategy, but not focused so much on the needed to change. Rather on poisoning the question. Is Britain a racist country? The report found that while there was racism, there's an answer to that question was no. And that would make people feel proud, not ashamed of progress that had been made. I don't think England's a racist country. You mean, look at the government. The Conservative Party, for one, you've got Pretty Patel, you've got Sajid Javid, all coming from BAME ethnic. It might not be full, but it might be mixed BAME ethnic minorities. Black Asian minority ethnics. They've got a few in, quite a few in Conservative. We've got Sadiq Khan, he's a Labour Mayor of London. Commission Chairman Tony Sewell put it like this: we no longer see Britain where the system is deliberately rigged against ethnic minorities. The impediments and disparities that do exist, they are varied and ironically, well, of the few are directly to do with racism. Too often, racism is the catch-all explanation and can be simply explicitly accepted rather than explicitly examined. Labour politicians, our source suggested, were being tempted to disagree and trapped into denouncing structural racism. Moths around the flame. This, in turn, could allow Conservatives to suggest the opposition was taking the country down and had not moved as far away from the Corbyn era as the new leadership under Sir Keir Starmer claimed. Many of the commissioners who had helped put the report together over the past 10 months urged people to see it in the round. To take on board its 24 recommendations, these include briefing up the Equality of Human Rights Commission to challenge policies or practices that cause significant and unjust racial disadvantage or arise from racial discrimination. The report also called on the government to tackle online abuse as a matter of urgency. One of the 11 commissioners, Keith Fraser, a former police superintendent and chair of Youth Justice Board for England and Wales, describes the reaction to some aspects of the report as like a torch being lit. There were moths around the flame, running towards it. They, the critics, didn't look either side of it. They need to turn on the fluorescent light and illuminate the whole room. But in initial terms of the debate, by a very focused beam in the light briefly to the in advance, a technique known in politics as getting your retaliation in first. Expectation of success. But what is the substance of the report? As one insider put it, it isn't just a press release. The plan of a commission had been announced by the Prime Minister last June after Black Lives Matter protest and the statute of wars. At this time, Boris Johnson has said, we have to look at discrimination, but what has very slightly been lost in the last of the story of success. What I want to do as a Prime Minister is change the narrative so we stop the sense of victimhood and discrimination. We stamp out racism. We start to have a real expectation of success. Statements like this had led critics inside Mr Johnson's own party and inside government to suggest that some of the conclusions of the report were, in effect, determined in advance, particularly the claim that the system is not deliberately rigged against ethnic minorities. The commission was set up by Munira Mirza, Mr Johnson's policy chief, who had been Deputy Mayor for Education and Culture when he was Mayor of London. She had previously questioned the nation of institutional racism. I mean, you ain't got to look at Priti Patel. What's her position? She's got, I mean, if there is any kind of racism, Priti Patel, she's in control of the legal immigrants coming in and out of the country. So she's got, some of the BAME community is running the whole of the country. Do you think if there was any kind of racism inside government, they'd let that woman? I like Priti Patel, I'm saying it, as a racist card would kind of come across and put it. Would you think they'd let that woman run the, the refugee site, refugees coming in and out of the country? She can give people the right to be in England and the right not to be in England. You think if any sense of discrimination, they'd let that woman take control of that? I do not think so. There's no racism at all in England. It's a fair country. It's a fair trade system. Exactly what Conservative says on the tin. Neoliberalism comes to mind when you talk about Conservative fair trade system. I mean, we're all sitting here at the moment, Conservative this, Conservative that, but you're all getting paid by sitting on your backside at home watching TV. That's what you got to remember when you put the Conservative government down. You're sitting at home, you're getting furloughed off work, you're getting, if you're on sick, you're on government pay, you're still getting paid to sit on your backside at home and enjoy yourself. I don't get paid to sit in here talking day in, day on end. I don't get paid for blogging all the local elections on Facebook. I've been pointed out to be doing that because it's part of my assignment from my university. I want to be a counsellor, and I make a good counsellor as well. I've been through a lot of life defects, believe me. Where Theresa May and Prime Minister set up racial disparities audit, Ms Mirza was quoted as saying it reinforces his idea as ethnic minorities are being systematically oppressed. That there's a short of institutional problem, when in fact what we've seen in the last 20 years is a liberalisation and opening up for many people. An independent report. She suggested that educationalist and former teacher Tony Sewell said chair the commission and Prime Minister formally asked him to do so. Mr Sewell too had questioned the existence of systemic racism in the UK. In a 2010 article for Prospect magazine, he suggested that much of the supposed evidence of institutional racism is flimsy. One source told us this was not an independent report as such, it was very much driven by Neria. Another said, this isn't even the Downing Street view, there are different views across number 10. These views are those of a faction. Neera and her husband, Dougie Smith in particular, they wanted to turn the assumption of Theresa May disparities audit on its head. Do not get me wrong, Theresa's audit wasn't totally about cynicism. She wanted to portray herself as a one nation Tory. But this report was really a reaction to the BLM with a foregone conclusion. Boris was dealing with a political problem reacting to BLM. He hasn't really deeply considered this. Others, though, disagree. One source said that Boris Johnson was attached to Moni Mirza's way of thinking because he is an optimistic, sunlight, upland guy. A fatalistic narrative, but it also goes much deeper than that, they suggested. While the left emoted on race, Prime Minister wanted a data-driven report, and if there was success for some groups in the education system, for example, that should be set out, not buried. The thinking was to improve the life chance of people from ethnic minority backgrounds. They had to be told what they could achieve. Otherwise, if they were led to believe that the odds were completely stacked against them from the start, and that there was very little they could do about it, they may not have the incentive to try. If that Tony Sewell described a fatalistic narrative, but Boris Johnson also wanted the complex nature and disadvantage to be recognised and political proposals to deal with problems where they were actually occurring. Reports forward says that evidence shows that geography, family influence, socio-economic background, culture and religion have more significant impact on life chances than the existence of racism. Not a stitch up. And one of the commissioners, Keith Fraser, is annoyed at the suggestion that findings were a foregone conclusion. He told BBC it irritates me when people call it a stitch up. I was really challenging and we challenged each other. If it was a stitch up, I wouldn't have been involved in it. The absolute rubbish. And you can underline that the commission come to amongst an awful lot of debate around the death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. But it was a journey. Not just about that, but about the decades before. I don't think there is anybody out there who can say the UK changed and changed for the better. But we mustn't think that the job is done. We're not saying that we are in utopia, running around the garden. But the point is to capitalise and leap forward. Conservative critics. Nonetheless, there are critics of the Commission report with senior ranks in the Conservative Party. One veteran of Theresa May's audit of disparities welcomed the report's embrace of the complexity of disadvantage, but his concerns were the report tipped over by suggesting that some people's experience of racism was being seen as not true or exaggerated. He argued that some of the most disadvantaged people do believe, rightly or wrongly, that they live in a racist country, that there is lived experience, he added, and to take them on a journey, you need to realise where they are starting from. Another Conservative said, we know inequality is complicated, but the report was tone deaf on issues such as slavery described in the paragraph about the Caribbean experience. And this would not help a a potential reservoir of support from people of ethnic minority backgrounds who maybe broadly share conservative values but don't yet trust the Conservative Party. In his rescinded resignation letter, the now former advisor Sam Kasamu seemed to share those views. White working class. But the Boris Johnson hoping to continue to obtain support in his seats he won for Labour in 2019 election. Some of those advising him to say it is essential that he seemed to address the disadvantage suffered by those from the white working class backgrounds. People in this group might be struggling in education and in getting its job market every bit as much as counterparts from ethnic backgrounds. In this respect, the report is helpful to the Prime Minister, with Chairman Tony Sewell writing in a forward another revelation in our drive into the data was just how stuck some groups for the white majority are. As a result, we come to the view that recommendations should, wherever possible, be designed to remove obstacles for everyone, rather than specific groups. A one source told us the government is quite happily having these culture debates. Getting a discussion around this report is what the government was trying to do. Well, whatever else it has achieved, it has certainly generated that. Misrepresentation. Following the backlash against the report, the Commission has sought to set the record straight. In a statement released late on Friday, it said the facts and analysis we presented had challenged a number of strongly held beliefs about the nature of extent of racism in Britain today. Sadly, however, in some cases, fair and robust disagreement with the Commission work has tipped into misrepresentation. The Commission said it had never said that racism does not exist in society or institutions. We say the contrary, racism is real and we must do more to tackle it, the statement has said. Robust debate we welcome, but to depict us as racism, deniers, slavery, apologists or worse is unacceptable. The Commission did not find conclusive evidence that institutional racism exists in the areas it examined. The statement added, but the report stresses that both reality and perception of unfairness matter. The Commission said it hoped the report would be read carefully and considered in the round. So anyone else coming from the Bain community, maybe you've been in slavery to work outdoors. You Caribbean, you've got the blood that can't take the English weather, such as myself. I've worked outdoors ever since I was 15. I won't be working outdoors ever again in my life. For that reason, I was septic Raynaud's arthritis. There's no way in a million years I'll be working outdoors in the cold ever again in my life. Kills me just to go to shop nowadays. That's how bad it's got. All them years of being slave driven to work outdoors to supply for my family. Brought up to know you got to support your family. Do everything in your willpower to support your family. You break every single bone in your body to support your family. Drag yourself in the ground in an early grave. When there's jobs in there, you can be sitting in an office. I'm sophisticated enough, I'm educated enough to be working in an office. Just as any other Tom Dick, I'm quick enough to be typing up a 2,000 word letter in the office. I proved that. It's about time I get some justice inside the United Kingdom. Anyway, thank you all for coming in. I don't know if anyone else has got the same problem, maybe struggling the same things in life. It's always good to come and hear your disparity with a show. Proclamation News and Gatherings, absolute phenomenal show, hour and a half. Thank you. I'm guessing that might be Tony listening. We've got, how many listeners we've got at the moment? We've got 16 on Castbox, 707 on Uplive TV, and 1 on YouTube. What a phenomenal show, eh? Airing out to the world. Absolute globalism. Globalism, populism, not globalisation. Thanks, guys. Globalisation will be going back to normal soon. Very, very soon. Don't know how soon, but there'll be another lockdown come October, so don't get too excited. Anyway, guys, I want to say thank you. God bless. One love. I'll hopefully be back around about the same time tomorrow, hopefully. It's absolutely phenomenal. You guys come through, support me. Really appreciate you all. One love. Speak soon. God bless. Take care.